You think this apple was picked a few days ago, maybe last week. But it wasn't. This apple was harvested 11 months ago. And somehow, it's still fresh. That's not refrigeration. It's something else. Birthday apples. The word fresh is everywhere. It's on the bag, it's on the label, it's on the sign above the display. But here's what fresh doesn't mean. It doesn't mean recent. It doesn't mean this week. For most produce in the United States, there is no legal standard tying the word fresh to the age of the food. Apples are harvested once a year. In the United States, the season runs from August to November. After that, nothing grows. But you can buy an apple in March, in June, in August, the week before the next harvest begins. The apple you're holding didn't come from a tree. It came from a warehouse. 60% of the entire U.S. apple crop goes into long-term storage. Not a refrigerator, something far more advanced. The industry calls it controlled atmosphere storage. Here's how it works. After harvest, apples are sealed inside airtight rooms. The temperature drops to just above freezing. Then the oxygen level is reduced. Normal air contains 21% oxygen. Inside these rooms, it drops to 1%. Carbon dioxide is increased. Humidity is locked. And the apple stops. It stops ripening. It stops aging. It stops breathing. The industry's word for this is hibernation. But that's not all. Before the apples go into storage, many are treated with a chemical called 1-methylcyclopropene. The industry knows it as SmartFresh. It works by blocking the apple's ethylene receptors, the biological signal that tells the fruit to ripen. Once those receptors are blocked, the bond is permanent. The apple will not ripen on its own again. The EPA approved it in 2002. They exempted it from residue tolerance requirements because they said it leaves no detectable trace. But a European food safety review found something else. 2 chemical impurities in the compound that tested positive for carcinogenic and genotoxic potential. The review concluded the amounts were too small to pose a risk. The long-term studies on feeding it to humans don't exist because no one has done them. Look at the apple in the grocery store. The skin is tight, the color is bright. It looks like it was picked this morning. It was not. It was picked nearly a year ago. Waxed, gassed, sealed in a room with almost no oxygen, and chemically prevented from ever ripening. So the food isn't fresh. But it has to go somewhere. Between the farm and your plate, there's a system. Most people have never seen it. Most people don't know it exists. It is the largest invisible infrastructure in the American food supply. And it is worth $91 billion. Cold storage. Thousands of warehouses spread across the country. Every piece of meat you've eaten passed through one. Every frozen vegetable, every block of cheese, every carton of eggs. The USDA tracks what's inside them. Every month, the government publishes something called the Cold Storage Report. Billions of pounds of butter, cheese, pork, chicken, beef, fruit sitting in warehouses, waiting. And here's what most people don't realize. That report doesn't just measure the food supply, it shapes your prices. The industry calls it price discovery. What's in those warehouses and what isn't directly determines what you pay at the register. But who controls the warehouses? 2 companies, Lineage Logistics and Americold. Between them, they control more than half of all temperature-controlled warehouse capacity in the United States. More than 50%. 2 names. One controls nearly 30% of the entire country's cold food volume on its own. Over 200 warehouses, positioned next to every major port, every major population center. They don't just store the food, they are the bottleneck between the food and you. Lineage built something they call LinOS. It's a proprietary artificial intelligence system that manages every movement inside their warehouses. They describe it as air traffic control for food. It predicts demand surges, it optimizes freezing cycles. It decides what moves and when. No human makes those decisions anymore. An algorithm does. And that algorithm is proprietary, owned by one company, governing nearly a third of America's cold food supply. And here's what holds all of it together: the buildings. The average cold storage warehouse in the United States is roughly 40 years old. 40 years! built before the internet, before GPS, before the food supply depended on it the way it does now. These warehouses were not designed for the volume they carry. They were not designed for the automation that could make them safer. They cannot be retrofitted without shutting down, and you cannot shut down the food supply. So they keep running. Old pipes, old insulation, old systems, holding your food in the dark. A cold chain is only as strong as its weakest moment, and the weakest moments are the ones nobody is watching. The breaks don't happen when a compressor fails. They happen in between. A handoff from a truck to a loading dock, a pallet on a warm dock for an extra hour, a door left open 3 minutes too long. The temperature rises 2 degrees, then 4, then 6. No alarm sounds, and the food moves on. Most companies don't know something went wrong until it's too late. A customer complaint, a child in a hospital. By the time anyone traces it back, the food is on the shelf, in the cart, on the plate. In 2024, there were over 740 food recalls in the United States, more than double the year before, triple the year before that. The average recall costs $10 million. But the money is not the story. A recall means the system already failed. People already ate it. A recall is not prevention. It's a confession. And some of what's growing in your food, cold doesn't stop it. Listeria monocytogenes, one of the deadliest foodborne pathogens in the world. It grows at refrigerator temperatures. The cold that's supposed to protect you, Listeria thrives in it. In 2024, an outbreak traced to a single deli meat facility killed 10 people. The plant had been flagged by inspectors years before. The product shipped anyway. The people inside these warehouses, they're disappearing. Labor turnover in cold storage hits 33%, 9 times the national average. Human beings working in freezing darkness, moving thousands of pounds of food per shift, leaving faster than any other workforce in the country. Every third worker gone within the year. The next one knows even less. Then there's the thing nobody plans for, a power outage. The average grocery store carries $370,000 in perishable inventory. A freezer without power holds safe temperatures for 48 hours. A refrigerator, 4. After that, what's inside stops being food. Insurance policies carry a 12 to 24-hour waiting period. By the time coverage kicks in, the food is in the dumpster. The technology to fix this exists. Real-time sensors, blockchain traceability, AI that predicts failures before they happen. But the warehouses are 40 years old. The wiring can't support the sensors. The floors can't support the robots. You cannot shut down a building holding 200 million pounds of food to install a better thermostat. The people trying to fix this are building the future inside a system that can't receive it. We regulate roads, we inspect bridges, we test the water supply. There are federal standards for the air you breathe and the building you sleep in. But the system that holds every piece of food you eat between the farm and your plate, there is no equivalent. 2 companies control more than half of it. The buildings are older than most of the people eating the food inside them. The workforce turns over every 3 years. And the only public record of what's in there is a monthly government report that most Americans have never heard of. 1/3 of all food produced on Earth is never eaten. In the United States alone, roughly 30 million tons of food is wasted every year. Most people assume that waste happens at home. It doesn't. 57% of it happens before the food ever reaches you. In warehouses, in trucks, on loading docks, in the spaces between the farm and the store where temperature slipped and nobody caught it. Better cold chain infrastructure could reduce that number, but you already know why it won't. The buildings can't change. The companies won't change, and nobody is making them. That apple you bought this morning, it traveled through this system. It was chemically treated before it entered storage, sealed in a room where the oxygen was dropped until it stopped breathing, held for months in a building older than you are, moved through a chain that breaks every single day, passed through the hands of workers who won't be there next year, and it arrived in your hand looking perfect. Right now, somewhere in America, a warehouse you will never see is holding billions of pounds of food in the dark. The temperature is steady, the oxygen is low, everything is still. And in a grocery store, not far from where you're sitting, someone is reaching for an apple. They think it's fresh.